Alright, let's create a simple API call automation using n8n, and let's see how to do that. Right, the goal is basically periodically check a API, so you will request that API periodically and get its returns, and with the return we can store in the database, send a message, or do anything else that we need to do with the return of the API. That is very useful in companies or personal projects where you need to trigger a job or get a health information from the API, the service itself, or even get some information from a web and store or message someone with that. All right, we have here a bank workflow. The first thing first is give a good name, right? Names are very important. So this thing here is gonna check API periodically, and basically what I'm doing here is checking a random API. I already have the API that I wanted to check, that I wanted to get its result periodically, and I will show how to do that on n8n. First thing first, we need to add the first step, so we can click here or click here on the top right corner as well. So first thing, we want this trigger on a schedule that will run in a specific interval, so we can run it daily, we can run in seconds, minutes, hours, weeks, months, or even we can use a custom cron job to run in a more specific way that we need, right? In our case, just for test, it's gonna run every day at 7 a.m. right? So, and we can also give names. Names are important. Trig daily at 7 a.m. right? And then we need to call our API, right? So let's say you don't know your API and your API is gonna be dynamically, maybe it comes from a database table or any other source that you don't know exactly what's gonna be. So in that situation, we will simulate that. We will use the set node, which is basically a node to edit fields, right? And we can include fields here, we can remove fields from your previous node, but in our case, we will just add the URL here. Let's say the URL and the value. As I said, I already have my API here. I will put the API as the value, right? So the URL is gonna be this one. It's the dog.co API. And I also want to include another field because as I'm checking a API, another field here, I needed to know what is the type of the HTTP request, and the HTTP request could be get, post, put, delete, and some others. In our case, we want to get, right? So we put the get here, and now we have our dynamically API URL and its type created using n8n, simulating that it's come from somewhere else. And I will show you in a second why we are doing this thing, and we can execute this step just for testing and see what's going to be the output on the right side, right? So the output is just the URL and the type get, right? And on the left side, we have the input from our previous node, right? Our previous node, it's basically the scheduler trigger, which outputs a lot of things. We don't need that right now, right? We don't need those information, so we can just ignore that. But if somehow we need, we just trigger this button here, and it will include all the fields from the previous node. If we test again, we have all fields from the previous node and URL and type, right? It might be important if you want to store the time zone, not the time zone, but the timestamp of the execution of this workflow when we will check this API, and we can include that using this thing, right? Alright, so now we already have our type and our URL. Let's use the HTTP request node to fetch that thing. Alright, so we can open that and search for HTTP request. Here is it. And the method here by default is get, but I don't want to set it statically here because I want to simulate that this API information is coming from another thing. So I just go here to expression, right? And I delete this guy and I can just click and drag the method information here, and we see we have the get information JSON.type. So the input for the previous node is gonna come in this JSON object, and the URL the same way. I don't want to put that statically here. I want that come dynamically, and this time I will type, right? Instead of click and drag, I will type that thing. So to get the expression from the previous node, I need to wrap that in the double curly braces, and it also shows me some predefined functions that I can use in this situation. In our case, we wanted the previous node data, so it's basically JSON, right? We don't own everything. You can see I put the JSON, so it shows me everything here. I just want the URL field, which is basically .url, right? So now I have the method get and the URL, which is this thing here that comes from our previous node, right? I can also send some carry parameters if I need some, send specific headers for the situation, and send a body if you want to send a JSON body. It's not usual to do that in a GET request, probably in a post or put. You can also include a JSON body if you need that, right? And not forgetting about authentication, right? If you need to authenticate to that API, you can also use different kind of authentications here. We have other options, different kind of options here that you can use. Batching, if you have too many API requests, you can batch those requests. SSL issues, and other things here, pagination, timing out, procs, redirects. If the API redirects you to some other place, you can use these options as well according to your target API. If you run this thing now, we probably would see the output. Let's see. Okay, I have the output here in the schema format. I can put that in a table format, and also in the JSON format, which is I prefer in some situations, so I can exactly see the JSON output for that API. So that API worked. I receive a message with a link. It's a photo and a status success, right? So that is what we want. We request our API, and that API worked. If I want to get what that any kind of error or something from that API, I can go to settings, and I can, in this on error option, I can basically continue. If you have an error, it will pass the error forward to the next node, or I can use a specific output to treat that error in a specific way, right? So let's use this one. So in case we have any error, it will go to a second branch of the node, right? Let me show you that. So here we have this error output, right? So I never have any error requesting this API, it will go to this thing. And if you have a success, it will go to the success path here, right? Again, let's give good names. So here we can change the name by get URL details, right? And the next node we can go through here, and is HTTP request the API, right? Just to let you know. All right, so in this specific situation, let's create the habit of save thing every time. In this specific situation, I want to store basically the message information, which is a dog breed, this dog engine here, and it has its JPG image format. I want to store that, but I also want to store the breed name, right? And the breed name is in the middle of the URL here that we receive in the body, in the response body of this request. So I need to extract this thing here from the URL, right? The breed name from the URL. So what we are going to do here, basically, we can use a function node, the code, right? But we don't want to do much code here. Let's again use the set node. It's a good node to use. So here we can create new fields using the input from the left side. Let's change that to JSON. So this is our input, and I will add a field here like the breed. I want the breed, it's going to be a string, right? And now I need to extract the breed from this URL. That is quite simple. We can use a JavaScript function for that. So let's change that to expression, right? So instead of fix it statically, I use an expression here, and as it is a JavaScript, I will start with this double curly braces here and put the JSON, our first suggestion, and then the message is what we want, is where we have our URL. Okay, so now I have our URL here, and I want to extract this thing. So basically we need to split that by a slash, right, and get this name here and get this name here, right? So if I split that by slash, now I have an array with everything, and the breed is before the last element of the array, right? So in that situation I can count, and I can pop it twice, pop one, I get the last, and oh no, I cannot pop twice. What I can do here is basically ensure that we get the HTTP position 0, empty stuff in this first position because it's 2 slash, one, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So I can get from the 4th position. So now I have the dog breed here that we want. If I run that, I will have the dog breed here, right? This is another one. It's another dog because that is another thing. Every time I test that node, it will probably execute the previous one. I can pin the last node output here, so when I test this guy here, it will always receive the same information, right, from the previous execution. Alright, so now we have the breed name, but I don't want only the breed name, I want everything from the previous node execution. So I just hit this thing here and select all, right? So now I have the breed, the status, and the message, right? That is not good, because if the URL or if the response, API response changes, this thing is probably not gonna work anymore. But for now, for the sake of this thing here, let's use in this way, so we can continue our workflow, right? So now I have all the AI output plus the new field that I added, that is the breed, right? Okay, so now let's give a good name here, extract breed. So with that information, I can now save in a database, I can send a Telegram message, I can save in the Google spreadsheet, I can do anything that I want. I can call another API here, right? As this API basically returns an URL, maybe let's call another HTTP request for this URL and see what's going to be the return. So let's put here HTTP request, and it's going to be a get, it's fine, but the URL is dynamically, it comes from here, right? It comes from that thing. I don't need the other things, I guess. I don't need the other stuff here, the other options as well. Let's just execute this, and now I have a binary output, right? So this is a binary output. If I change to JSON, I don't see anything, right? I only see the thing that inputted in this node, but in the binary I have basically the breed, right? The breed, that the breed image of this dog breed here. So we can view that. Okay, it's a beautiful dog, and I can download that. I can download that image and save that somewhere, right? And I can also save that, send a message, okay, request the breed photo. And I can do a lot of things with this thing now. I can send, as I said, send a message, store in the database, and that's it. That is how you can automate that thing. And we have here the schedule 7 a.m., right? Every day 7 a.m. So now I can activate the workflow, and the workflow is activated, and it will get the Arundel dog breed image, and then extract the breed from the output, and then request the photo, right? So if you will remove the pin here and run it again, save, let's run it again, it will run all nodes, okay. I can see here, now I have a different brief, a retriever, flat coated, let's see the image, okay, it's a beautiful dog, right? So if I run it again, probably it will get a different breed, right? So here now we have a Newfoundland, okay, let's see the Newfoundlands, okay, cute, and that's it. So basically this request API here will get random breeds dog image, right? So whenever we click, we run this thing here, this API request, it will return a random dog breeds, right? So if you execute again, now we have a dingo. What is a dingo? Let's continue here. Let's extract the breed, and let's see the image. View the image. Okay, it's a beautiful dog as well. All right, so that is our API automation, and as I said, you can Slack someone, you can store in a database, Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB, you can send a Telegram message, right? You can send a Telegram message. If you have a business using WhatsApp, you can send a message in the WhatsApp business, and many other nodes that we have, right? So next video probably I will cover a little bit about AI and how you can store this thing here in a way, and what about errors, and if you have an error here, we can do something else, right? So if you have an error, we can Slack someone about that. We can send a Telegram message to someone about that error, so someone can go here and see what's going on, right? We also have the possibility to retry. So if you have an error, it will retry 3 times, and with 1000 milliseconds interval between the retries, and we can increase that to 10. Okay, let's try 10 times, and with 2 milliseconds, with it's basically 2 seconds between executions, and let's see, right? And once we reach the 5 times or 10 times executions here, tries, and it is still failing, it will send to the error output, right? And in the error output, we can take some action to see what's going on with this API, right? That's it for today. Thank you for watching.